I hope you're well.
I'm okay. I'm okay.
Wait. So I'm guessing that this is a move that most all of you in the minority agree with. What will be your basis for pushing that this MPs be taken out of the house?
Well, I don't think we are the ones pushing that they should be taken out of the house. We are simply asking that the rules of Parliament should be applied because when Michael Kwe was Speaker, similar issues came up, and the NPP moved for the rules to be applied. So I think that they set a precedent of how to deal with those issues. And then we just remembered and we're asking that we should follow those precedents. That's all.
So all you're asking for is for the precedent to be followed.
Exactly. Because if you recall, even I, at that time, had some disagreements with the then Speaker about enforcing those rules. But they insisted and said those were the rules and went ahead and enforced it. And you see, when you set precedents, you must always think about tomorrow. So the tomorrow has come. And we're saying that just apply the rules as you determined them to be yesterday. So if anybody say we are seeking to push people out of the house, that's wrong.
But I'm sure you heard some of your colleagues who completely disagree with you. In fact,
they were not there. Yesterday, they were very silent. When Makoko was applying the rule, they were all there. And they were very, very silent at that time. And they thought that it was good law. So today, it remains good law. And we are saying that since they made it the law, they should enforce it. That's all.
And I was just going to read to you one of the stands taken by one of your colleagues. That's Honorable Atachia. What he said about, he says, what Speaker Michael Kwe did in the past, I believe, was an error, and we are not bound by his decision. There is no law that says what the previous speaker did, if an error, should have relevance for the now moment. And I believe that Speaker Okwe was wrong because the Constitution is clear. Today, you cross carpet when Parliament is in session, not when it's dissolved, and you join another party. That's the distinction I want to make. And then he continues to say,
but he's wrong. He's wrong because when you go to file to contest on the ticket of a political party, you must have joined that party. You must have joined that party. So if you haven't joined the party, how are they going to allow you to now contest on their ticket? The same way, yesterday we established that even under the MPP constitution, when you leave and go and file to contest as an independent candidate, you must have left that party. Because the constitution says clearly that if you do that, it amounts to, exiting from the party. And that was what happened in the case of Esiama. And then Michael Kwe gave the ruling that he left the party. And once he left the party, he had to leave Parliament. So his argument was flawed. It was very, very flawed. There's no basis to even continue the conversation.
Because he was also talking about the fact that these are future intentions.
Well, Michael Kwe also pointed out that it may sound like a future intention, but it starts having effect now. It would be ridiculous to say that it doesn't have effect now, because as it is now, the independent candidates in their constituencies are openly campaigning against their party. Openly. So, yes, it is futuristic in intention, but in effect now.
Now, a submission has been made before the speaker. Responses have been given, but the majority also points out that the majority leader actually says he has a suit before the Supreme Court, and that should hold the Speaker's hand from giving a decision on the matter. Do you agree?
That is also a very flawed position, because the courts have taken a position in all the cases that have been taken to them that they will always wait for us to exhaust all the internal processes in Parliament before they even get involved in any matter that has to do with Parliament. It's not that Parliament is free to do anything. The case in which Yoni Clooney gave judgment and ruled that a rule of the House is in conflict with the provision of the Constitution is clear indication that Parliament doesn't have free hand to do everything, because there are some things that if Parliament does will contradict the clear language of the Constitution. So it may well be that the position that Michael Okoye has taken conflicts with the provisions of the Constitution. But then, if they had challenged Michael Okoye at that time, they would have given the Supreme Court an opportunity to pronounce on the legality or otherwise, or the constitutionality or otherwise of Michael Okoye's ruling. But they didn't challenge it. In fact, I personally urged them to challenge it. But they didn't, because it served their interest to do what they did. Then, when they now realize that they are in a corner, even before Parliament resumes, you now run to the Supreme Court. So the issue is, wait till this Speaker enforces that rule. When he enforces the rule, then you can now go to the Supreme Court and then wait for a Supreme Court ruling on the matter. So what he did yesterday, or what he did and announced yesterday, is clearly wrong. The court will not interfere until the Speaker gives a ruling and enforces the ruling. Then they can go and challenge it in the Supreme Court.
So you're suggesting that he has nothing to challenge at this point?
At this moment, I haven't seen the writ. I haven't seen the relief as it is framed. So I don't even know exactly what it is that he has taken to the Supreme Court. But I'm saying that they lost opportunity long ago. And another opportunity is being presented. But then they will have to wait and let the internal processes of Parliament be exhausted, because you don't know what the Speaker's ruling is going to be. So what are you going to challenge? Because he may actually come and say, oh, well, I agree with you. Or he would say, oh, I agree with Michael Okoye. If he says, I agree with Michael Okoye, then you have a basis for now going to the Supreme Court. But at this stage, I don't believe that. Well, it depends on the relief. Like I said, if it is me, I will know how I'm going to couch my relief. And I believe that, I may be able to invoke the jurisdiction of the court. I don't want to believe that he doesn't know, but I haven't seen it. So since I haven't seen it, I don't even know what it is that he has sent. But then I also think that in relation to these 4 MPs, the matter is not yet fully right.
I see. Now, having said that, as a politician, you must understand why they are resisting. Because...
Oh, yeah, of course. Yeah, I argued it yesterday. I said it has very serious and grave public implications. That if Speaker Bawku says that the 4 of them should leave based on the precedent set by Michael Okoye and his reading of the Constitution and our standing orders, then overnight the NDC becomes the majority in Parliament. Yes, so Afeo Make will lose his post as a majority leader. And then Atufosun will become the majority leader. And we may have to change certain places in the chamber, because by the rules of the House, the majority sits on the right and the minority sits on the left. And if we are even going to go the long haul or the full extent of the application of the rules, it means that all the committees have to be reconstituted. So committees that the majority should chair will then be changed so that the current majority will become minority on those committees, and then the chairs will change. committees that are chaired by the minority will also change. And then the current minority will, be repositioned to chair those committees. So it has a lot of public implications, but that is democracy. Those are the rules. And our country is being tested, and we've exhibited that capacity to go the long haul in enforcing our constitution and then keeping our democracy on the track that we designed it to follow.
Beyond that, it will be significant precedence, at least for the fourth Republican democracy that we practice for some time now. It will be perhaps the first time a ruling government.
It will be the first time that it will be happening, yes. It will be the first time where you will have a ruling government and then you will have a minority, having the opposition party having the majority in parliament.
But what real value will it hold? Because at the end of the day, this is trending towards the end of this administration. Not so much business will happen over the period. What can that majority do for the current minority or the National Democratic Congress?
Well, for whatever it is worth, it's exciting for us. It's exciting for the country to experience it. And it's exciting for our democracy to be able to live through it, no matter how short-lived it will be. And it just demonstrates Ghana's capacity to really carry this democracy business forward.
And since I have you on the line, just a small diversion. And I guess yesterday, when the minority leader and the majority leader were delivering their statements, their opening statements, this Galamsey issue came up again. The suggestion from the majority leader was that you in the NDC were politicizing the matter. How do you respond to that suggestion?
I'm surprised that he, of all people, will be complaining about politicization. What is politicization? Politicization is when you take a national issue and make it a political issue so that it can gain political attention. Because the country is run by politicians. The president is a politician. The MPs are politicians. So the executive is a political entity. And so when you want to gain attention so that a policy issue can receive the needed attention, you have to bring it up to the political level. And so you have to make it a political issue. And when the matter is so fundamental, it affects the livelihoods of people. It affects the health of a nation. Why should it not be a political matter? Why should it not be an election matter? Because you are asking the political leaders to commit to addressing that problem. So you want it to be the basis on which they are even seeking public office. That when they come into public office, this is your priority. This is the issue you want them to deal with. That is a serious political matter. And that is what the Galamsey issue has to become. All the candidates must pledge to deal with it one way or the other. Because that is, for now, an existential issue in this country. It's existential. Many people are going to die of cancer because of that. So for them, it's an existential matter. For those of us who are healthy now, but are being told about the level of pollution of our water bodies and its implications for healthcare and our own existence, it is an existential matter. What could be more important in our politics than the quality of our water? So I'm quite embarrassed to hear the minority or majority leader not agree that it should be a top political matter that all of us must come together to address.
Then, having said that, I guess you not have a problem with this comments from President Akufo-Addo about former President Mahama. Says today he's saying that no, he doesn't believe in jail, that is against Galamsey, and he will enforce the law. So once again, we have to ask ourselves, Mr. JM, where do you stand? What are you telling the people of Ghana? Because every time you speak from one corner of your mouth and you speak from another corner of your mouth. Let us hear from you direct, straight up. What do you stand for? We need to know.
Let me speak as somebody who was John Mahama's environment minister and who understands the problem and the complexity of the Galamsey matter. At a certain level, okay, the Galamsey requires enforcement of the law. For instance, when you give somebody a prospecting license, an established mining company, you give them a prospecting license, and they get on the ground and they are not doing prospecting, but they are actually mining. Now, because they are holding a prospecting license, the EPA may not even know that they are actually mining. So the EPA will not be there to enforce the environmental standards as they are mining, because the EPA thinks that they have a prospecting license. So they are deploying to monitor prospecting activities. Meanwhile, in the bush, these people are actually carrying out mining. That one requires an enforcement of the law. I'm sure you would have seen a video clip either of Joy TV or some other media house went to a site and saw soldiers, Ghana Armed Forces soldiers, guarding an illegal mining activity. And Joy reported that when they contacted the Minerals Commission, they said, no, we didn't give them a mining license. Yes, we know them, but we gave them a prospecting license. But they went and they got Ghana Armed Forces soldiers to be guiding them and protecting them to carry out mining. Clearly illegal. That is a clear case where you are going to enforce the law. Now let's get to these, our small brothers who have left SHS, have no jobs, are sitting at home, have heard that there's some gold in their neighborhood, and they've gone to get pickaxe and they are digging. In relation to those ones, John reminded Mahama, I said, look, these are young people who have nothing to do, they are hopeless, they see that there's an opportunity and they are digging. Those ones, I'm not going to jail them. I'm going to call them, get the EPA and the Minerals Commission, to cut off community mining sites for them, assign it to them, support them, and then have the EPA monitor them so that they can mine properly and then in accordance with environmental standards. I am saying that as a Minister for Environment, that for me is the most practical approach to dealing with this situation. So John Mahama is not saying the wrong thing. He has been president for 8 years. If he had done these two basic things of insisting on those who have been given prospecting license to stick to prospecting, and then when they establish that there's gold in economic quantities, to now come and then get a mining license and make the requisite investments to give these young people the employment that they are looking for. These boys are only looking for jobs. They are looking for a livelihood, opportunity. If the mining companies had actually gone to establish proper mines, they would have been employing all these young people. But they don't do that. And that is what we should enforce the law and compel them to do. Then in areas where the gold is there, but not in commercial quantities to justify large-scale mines, then the government can establish community mining, setups where they are trained, where they are artisanal, and not this situation where people go and bring Chinese, go in the thick forest, and then fell trees, and then they are using excavators and bulldozers and etc. For those ones, it is strict enforcement of the law, and we must exact our pound of flesh. But these young boys, you need to organize them, get them community sites, get the EPA to supervise them, have a reclamation fund, so that when they finish, we reclaim the place, we plant the trees, and etc. As for mining in the river bodies, it is a no-no, because the technology involved in mining in river bodies is so expensive that these people cannot even afford it. So we just completely stop mining in river bodies. That is just a strict question of enforcement and prevention. If you prevent, it won't happen for you to be imprisoning people. If you actually prevent, if you don't do this talking from both sides of your mouth, where you send the soldiers, the day you send the soldiers, you let the soldiers inform the community that we are coming, then they disappear. Then you come, then you carry media, then you show that, oh, we were there, like they did last week. Then the following day, you now tell the guys, oh, yeah, you can go, but we're not coming again. Then they run back and they go and they. If you approach it that way for political reasons, you will get the consequences that we are facing today. So river bodies, no. There must be permanent surveillance. Helicopters must be flying across those areas along the rivers every day. Morning they'll fly across, afternoon they'll fly across. When they get to a location where they see that, people are mining, the soldiers land there and then they prevent them. When they see that the state is exercising serious surveillance over its water bodies, they will stop because they know they will be stopped. They would rather go to other areas and establish community mining operations where the EPA can supervise them. Mining is an economic activity. Why? Every year we report and say, oh, we made so much from exporting gold. Out of our exports, we are stabilizing our city, we are able to afford our foreign imports, and etc. So mining is an economic activity. The issue that Ghanaians are complaining about is mining in ways that are destroying the environment. So what it means is that we must ensure that whoever is going to mine is mining in a manner that complies with all the environmental standards. So by now, we should be beefing up the capacity of the EPA, expanding their offices, expanding their personnel, giving them vehicles, and in fact, amending the laws so that whether the person has a license or not, when the EPA goes there, it is their responsibility to make sure that environmental standards are complied with. As it is now, EPA can see people mining, they won't even go near because they don't have a record that shows that that person has a concession, a license. So for that reason, they will just sit there and watch people carry out illegal mining activities. But if you amend the law and say wherever there is mining activity, the EPA can exercise authority, take charge of the site, and prevent any conduct that pollutes the environment. Even before you go into the stage of determining whether you have a license or you don't have a license, the environment must first and foremost be protected. There are so many things that can be done. And then those who are calling for state of emergency and etc., you can declare, a state of emergency in relation to illegal mining and go hard on those locations. I mean, whatever it is that you think is an appropriate response, even though I feel that if we are serious about it, we don't even need to get to the extent of declaring a state of emergency. Because if the people are not committed, they can still declare state of emergency and still do nothing. Because even when there's no declaration of state of emergency, they have the powers to do all the things that need to be done to stop it. But they are not doing it. So declaring a state of emergency won't change their attitude. What is needed is for their attitude to change. And that is why it is right for it to be a political matter, so that there will be political pressure for you to give the matter priority.
Always a pleasure talking to you, Honorable. And thank you very much for your time. Mahama Ayariga is Member of Parliament for Bawku Central Constituency. He is also a former Minister for the Environment. And anyway, we'll also speak shortly. We'll go back. We'll stick back to the issue of the 4 MPs. The 4 MPs who may lose their seat or may be forced based on Michael Kwei's precedence, because I understand he's saying something else. He's saying that the precedence does not apply. But those 4 MPs, their matter. We're going back to it and speak to Dr. Rashid Rahman of the African Center for Parliamentary Affairs. In fact, he spoke to us on Monday on this issue. And Doc, thank you very much for your time once again, and I hope you're well.
Yes, I'm well. Thank you.
I'm guessing you monitored how things played out in Parliament yesterday when the matter was raised.
Mm-hmm.
What are your observations?
Well, I foresaw something like this happening, but I was just surprised that it was faster than I had envisaged. I was thinking that maybe Parliament will wait for a ruling from the Right Honourable Speaker and then